When the Odin Handheld was revealed, a Super Dock containing Nintendo 64 and Gamecube ports was also announced, so it seemed like AYN made Gamecube emulation a big selling point of the system. Now that I have the Odin in my hands, how does it perform in Gamecube emulation? In this video, I'm testing a mix of 20 Gamecube games, from classics like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker to third-party hits like Soul Calibur 2. If you like this video, please help the channel out by leaving a like and also subscribing to the channel. We'll be doing more testing on the Odin, including PS2 games as well. In these showcase videos, my main goal is to summarize my time testing the games, and also to convey an appreciation of the hardware, the overall emulation performance of the system, and any other interesting points I discovered during the testing. It can be really surprising which games work well and which don't. For anyone that likes to watch longer versions of gameplay, I'll be posting a video with much more gameplay over onto the second channel JimRPG2, so head on over there and subscribe. The channel still needs to be worked on, so please be a little bit patient until it's up and running. There's also a spreadsheet showing the games I've tested for this channel, and I'll leave a link for that in the description below. Now let's get on with the Gamecube testing. As you know, I have a rating scale: bad, okay, good and great. Bad is not worth playing, okay if you really must, good is fine with some issues, and great means it's running really well with some minor issues. I'm using all US ROMs here, and I'm running all these games using the performance mode and quiet fan setting option, though there are a few I've noted using high performance mode and sport fan option. In my Odin Handheld review video, I've already covered 4 games and I'll quickly cover them here. F-Zero GX doesn't play well and runs at 30 to 50 FPS. Resident Evil 4 I said was great, with some minor frame rate drops. Super Mario Sunshine also plays great at a locked 30 FPS. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 runs fantastic. These were 4 games that actually didn't play well on the Powkiddy X18S, so the Odin Snapdragon 845 is much better at emulating Gamecube. Let's start with Burnout 2. There's no Burnout 3 on Gamecube, so this is your next best bet, and honestly Burnout 2 is an awesome game. This ended up being the best performing racing game that I tested. Call of Duty 2 Big Red One is interesting because Call of Duty 2 was only developed for PC, Xbox 360 and PS3, and Big Red One was developed by Treyarch for previous gen consoles. Despite this being the forgotten sibling, this game looks surprisingly good. Unfortunately, this runs like Crysis on a 90s IBM because it spends more time in single digit frame rates than it does above 20 FPS. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance played great on Powkiddy X18S, so no surprises here, it performs perfectly fine on the Odin. I wanted to include it here because Fire Emblem games are really suited to handhelds. With Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, I was a bit disappointed with the performance, particularly in the early forest area where you rescue Tetra, one of the pirates. I can make it slightly better by adjusting some settings, like making sure the scaled EFB copies is turned on and also reducing the emulated Gamecube clock down to 80%, but the slowdown doesn't completely go away. It's possible it's just an area of the game with slowdown baked in. Out in the early beach town area, crossing the bridge is really smooth at 30 FPS, while it can be slower on the X18S. So it is a little bit better than the X18S, but there are still some problems here. For now, I've rated it as okay. I'm hesitant to say it's good performance, especially if there are similar areas further in the game with the same slowdown. Mario Golf didn't even load on the X18S, but it runs great here, although there's some minor stutters and slowdown, it didn't really affect the gameplay. You might have seen Mario Kart Double Dash on the Odin Handheld in AYN's promotional videos, and it looked like it played perfectly. After testing this out over 4 tracks, it played really smoothly. Mario Tennis also had issues on the X18S, particularly with textures not loading in and replay problems, but the only issues I had here was some audio crackling and slowdown in the menus, but the game was surprisingly smooth. Medal of Honor European Assault plays much better than Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, but it also doesn't look as good. In demanding scenes like this prologue where lots of enemy soldiers are running around and shooting, the frame rate does drop quite a bit, so overall I'd only rate it as okay, but it's still alright if you need a shooter.
And the ball just got scammed off his man.
Here's NBA Street Volume 2. There aren't that many NBA games on Gamecube, but this is one that plays perfectly smooth and is a great fit for the handheld. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 is really interesting. By default it runs slow, averaging in the 20s for frame rate, though if you run it at a reduced 40% Gamecube emulated clock speed, this actually plays surprisingly smooth, around 25 to 30 FPS. It's not great, but the first track at least was smooth enough that there were no jarring stutters. I'm going to play the PS2 version on Ether SX2 as I have a feeling that some of these games are going to play better on a newer emulator that hopefully makes better use of newer hardware. I'm actually testing 3 Need for Speed games in this video to find one that plays well, and Hot Pursuit 2 might be the best we're going to get on Gamecube. Need for Speed Underground is similar to Hot Pursuit 2. It's too slow at default settings and plays best at 80% of the emulated Gamecube speed. I've rated it bad here because it's not smooth enough to be really worth playing on the Odin. It is an amazing looking game though. Similarly, Need for Speed Underground 2 doesn't play well either. Again, 80% emulated speed plays best. Surprisingly, this looks like a bit of a downgrade in the graphics department compared to the first game. Pokemon Colosseum generally works well, but there does seem like a problem with the analog stick where it gets stuck and inputs aren't read properly. However, the easy fix is just to use the D-pad, which also moves the main character. I played for about half an hour and performance is okay. It runs at 30 FPS and feels a little slow. Pokemon Gale of Darkness plays at a similar performance level. There's also the same problem with the analog stick, so it's best to use the D-pad. Like Colosseum, the game also runs at 30 FPS. Smash Bros. Melee plays pretty similar to how it plays on the Power Kitty X18S. It's not perfect and there are some stutters here and there. Sonic Riders runs at 60 FPS, though it does feel like there's some minor stutters here and there. Soul Calibur 2 also isn't perfect. It's running at around 55 to 60 FPS, so it's not that bad, and is only noticeable if you're really being picky. You could also use the Power ROM and that should make it a bit smoother of an experience. SSX3 also has some stutters, which is part of the original game, but generally it runs great. I suggest using the high performance setting as that gave me the smoothest experience. Viewtiful Joe runs at around 45 FPS and doesn't play well with audio crackling and slowdown throughout. Wave Race runs at 30 FPS, and I do wish this was at 60 FPS as this would be a much better experience, but overall I don't really have any complaints about the performance on this one. So, just to wrap up, the results are really interesting. Gamecube plays well enough, though there are still some games that don't work very well here. With the Power Kitty X18S playing around 50% of Gamecube games, the Odin with its Snapdragon 845 plays around 70, maybe even 80% of Gamecube games at a good or great experience. Bear in mind that there are quite a number of games that I tested on Power Kitty X18S that I didn't test here, so you can go and check that video out to see what other Gamecube games would work. That's it for this one. Hit that like button if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel for more gaming videos, and I'll see you in the next one.